Hello, welcome to this edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. Had a very interesting sports week to talk about. We've got a great show for you tonight, and we're going to start off by finding out what's on Al's mind.
Hello, everybody. I got a couple things on my mind, like usual. One of the things is the Pitt football team. They had a nice average game the week before, and then what happened this week? I think Coach Graham has to get it straightened out there with what kind of team he does have. And he might be asking some of those players to do a little too much there. But we'll leave that Pitt thing alone for a little bit. The other thing is the Steelers. You know, I did predict that they would win, and for them to have a 92-yard last second Elway-esque type of comeback was just so tough on us Steeler fans here, but they earned it. You know, I'm sure we could have won it some other ways. There was some confusion on the punt, extra, field goal type of try. So there were numerous things out there that was sort of disappointing there. And we just got to regroup again for Cincinnati, and let's see if they're for real this week. That's on my mind, Mike.
I also got Smoking Jim Frazier. Jim, been a big sports week. What's on your mind?
Thanks, Magic Mike. Actually, I don't know what's more surprising, Pittsburgh Steelers losing twice to the Baltimore Ravens or Jerry Sandusky. Listen, I've been saying all along that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been winning with Bill Cowher players, and they're starting to get old now. Coach Mike Tomlin has used all Bill Cowher players. Coach Mike Tomlin has used all Bill Cowher's coaches. Coach Mike Tomlin has used Bill Cowher's system. I'm surprised he hasn't tried to adopt his kids. Listen, tomorrow, if I got the head coaching job at the Green Bay Packers and I kept all their players and all their coaches, I could lead them to a Super Bowl and lose just like Tomlin did. Listen, if you look at Bill Cowher's head coaching tree, you had Dom Capers, you had Dick LeBeau, you had Jim Haslett, you had Marvin Lewis, Shane Gailey, Mike Mularkey, and Ken Wisenhunt. Presently on Coach Tomlin's staff, who has the potential to be a head coach? Nobody. Coach Tomlin is not developing coaches, and he's not developing players. Can you name the quarterback coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? No, because he's a bum. Listen, Coach Mike Tomlin is a great speaker. He's a great motivator. He's a very smart man. But as Bill Cowher's players begin to retire, look for the Pittsburgh Steelers to turn into the Pittsburgh Pirates.
All right, Jim. Well, Jim, you've heard me say it a million times because we've done a lot of shows together. Al, you've probably heard me say it quite a few times, and the viewing audience will probably hear me say it over and over and over. There is nothing in the world worse than a sports reporter or any reporter with nothing to report. This week, they're going to take a hatchet job to the greatest college football coach that ever lived. Joe Paterno is a great football coach. They're going to try to destroy the man because they've been trying to destroy him for 10 years. He should leave. He should do this. He should do that. Well, now they've got this sex scandal with Jerry Sandusky, former defensive coordinator, has a thing for young boys. Imagine that. Okay, so yeah, Joe Paterno heard about it. He passed it up the chain of command. That's the way the chain of command works. Even though people say, well, Joe Paterno runs the whole school, it's not true. He's the football coach. When he heard there was a problem, he sent it up the chain to the athletic director. The athletic director sent it up the chain to the president. Okay? They didn't do anything about it, but Joe Paterno did what he was supposed to do. Now you've got yo-yos like Ron Cook, who's saying that Joe Paterno should do the right thing. Joe Paterno should leave. Joe Paterno should do that. This is the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's sports page. I put this down for my dog one day. He was constipated for a month. Okay, he wouldn't go on this thing. You shouldn't read this thing. What you should do is call tomorrow, cancel the subscription, and tell them you'll never read it again until they fire Ron Cook. Ron Cook is a worm. He's a scumbag. He couldn't put a patch on Joe Paterno. where Jerry Sandusky's probably been looking for the last 40 years. Okay? The man is a bum. You shouldn't read his trash, but you will. And it's just like they've done to Tiger Woods, like they're doing to Herman Cain, like they do to everybody. The press is great for building people up, then ripping them down. All right? Ron Cook won't prepare for his radio show for 3 weeks because all he'll do is call and tell Joe Paterno should quit and let people call in. The guy's a scumbag. Quit reading his garbage. Tell the Post-Gazette to get rid of him. And let me tell you something else. Over the last 10 years, when Bob Smizik and Ron Cook and every other yo-yo around here, these hacks with crayons that people read, every time that they said Joe Paterno should step down, Joe Paterno should be replaced, and Jim, you tell me if I'm wrong, every time they said it, the guy they said should replace him was Jerry Sandusky.
That's right.
That's right. All right, sorry I got a little bit carried away there. Well, we did sort of bring up the Steeler game a little earlier. Jim, what went wrong?
Well, a few things went wrong. Number one, first and foremost, the Pittsburgh Steelers couldn't match the physicality of the Baltimore Ravens. And that's one thing. Number two, we've been saying it all along that the Steelers put too much stock in their $4 million a year wide receiver, Hines Ward. They should have parted ways. This was a week that they needed Hines Ward, and they got only about 7.2 seconds of production out of Hines Ward before Ray Lewis, helmet to helmet, put him to the sideline, and he thought he was back in South Korea for a minute there. But the Pittsburgh Steelers now find themselves, Magic, chasing for a wild card. And if they lose this weekend in Cincinnati, they'll be in third place in the division. That's a place that nobody wants to be this late in the season.
What'd you see?
Well, what I saw is a team that should not have let the defense try to stop them at the end. I would have rather they tried to kick that field goal at least, or try to maintain the ball and drive down the field, because the offense did move it in the second half. They did have a little better rhythm. You had Ben throwing some completions, and Brown was doing well, and you had some nice plays by Mike Wallace over the middle, and Heath had a couple plays, and they had a few runs. So I would have rather had the offense on there a little more than the defense at the end, because they're not the same type of defense. Like Smoking Jim's telling us, some of the players are getting old, and some of the new kids, maybe they don't have the talent there. I'm wondering where this Timmons is at. I mean,
on the back of his face is on the back of a milk carton, but you can see him at the bank every Monday.
Right. Well, that bothers me because you spent all this money. Now, Woodley, I know he was hurt, but Timmons you thought would have been more of an impact player. Then you have the guy coming in with a face mask who had orbital eye surgery, and he had 3 sacks. So, I mean, we need some of the young bucks to come up here. He's in his 30s now, so that's what I saw. I go on and on here, Mike. But
Yeah, we got an hour.
Okay. What'd you see, Mike?
Well, I'll tell you what, you're right. Well, Jim, let's go back a couple years. The day that Lawrence Timmons was drafted, who told you he was the bust of the draft?
That's right.
Who told you that was a wasted draft pick?
That's right.
As far as James Harrison, he had an outstanding game, especially for somebody that's been injured. He played really well. He did a great game. But the other guys, maybe not so much. I never, ever try to second-guess Dick LeBeau. I think he's the greatest defensive coordinator that ever lived. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I'm not a Steelers fan. But that last drive, why would you stay in man coverage? You had to go to a prevent, or you had to go to a zone. You had to just let them eat up some yardage, but never, ever score. That was, I don't understand why he did that. Maybe he didn't have the players to do that. I don't know. I didn't see Polamalu too much this past week. He said Lawrence Timmons, he should have welcome across his chest instead of a number because he's a doormat.
Does he have that yellow disease too? I'm wondering about the yellow disease because that might be running rampant on the team. Somebody informed me last week about that, Jim.
I don't know if I would say they were gutless. It looked like they were kind of clueless at the end, though. Well, and again, that's just my observation. Now, as far as Hines Ward, well, it's very possible he might be finished. I don't know the severity of his injury, and I don't know, what it's going to take to get him back. I do know that there are people out there that could possibly replace him. Now, just recently, Terrell Owens apparently has an arrest warrant out for him. Now, again, it's not because he raped anybody or DUIs or beat his wife or even beat up a towel dispenser in a bathroom someplace, but it's still an arrest. Okay, and he's still going to have a police record. So all you people previously said, well, he's not the Steelers kind of player. Maybe it was true then, but he's a Steelers kind of player now because he's got an arrest record. So he can probably fit right into that team, and they need somebody to replace Hines Ward anyway. So, and I think he's a good wide receiver. Now, last week, I said that I thought that Mike Wallace had the potential to be one of the greatest receivers in the league. This week, I'll tell you for sure that Santonio Holmes is the greatest receiver in the league. He had an outstanding game this week. I'm sure the Steelers missed him.
No doubt. Well, didn't you hear that they said Cotchery is a 6-year younger type of guy like Hines Ward? That's what they had said. So we have our replacement already there.
What's that mean? He's going to dance with the stars sometime soon, or what?
In 5 years.
5 years.
You got to do the math.
Well, like Magic Mike said, Steelers are in trouble wide receiver. Cotchery's not going to play. He got a knee injury. Emmanuel Sanders just got a knee scope, so he's out for a couple of weeks. So they're real slim at wide receiver. For some reason, Coach Mike Tomlin underuses Antonio Brown. He was ready as a rookie, but Coach Mike Tomlin was with that one bone, two dog theories. I think Brown is a guy that shows up bigger to games. You know, he got a lot of heart. I love Wallace, but if you look at Wallace, he wanted no part of the tough Ravens defense this week. And if you look back in the playoffs, Mike Wallace don't show up in the big game. So I would look to Ben loves Antonio Brown. He's the hardest working guy on the team. I would start revolving the offense, passing offense around Brown and Heath Miller.
What do you think happened with Heath this week? They didn't go for him that much. Did they just shut him down?
Well, when you got bums on your offensive line, which the Steelers got the worst offensive line in all of football, unfortunately, you have to turn Heath Miller into an offensive tackle to help protect, to give Ben a little bit of time to get the ball down the field. And when you got Mike Wallace hugging the sideline, not going over the middle, not even looking at the crown of the middle of the field, you know, it makes it tough. And then when you have Hines Ward coming in for one play and you got a guy like Crouchy that really doesn't know the system yet, you know, it makes it very difficult on your all-pro superstar quarterback.
I know that you and Max Starks, you're a big Max Starks fan,
Yes.
you must have been thrilled because they highlighted Max for 2 consecutive plays. And so, look, Max is doing a good job, but they never went back to it because he was never standing up at the end of any plays after that. Right? They walked all over that offensive line. They beat them like dogs. They were in the backfield constantly. If you could have changed uniforms with Suggs, he might have been a pretty good running back for the Steelers because he was always back there for the handoff.
Yes, sir.
I can't argue with you. I agree that the offensive line is subpar. I've always said that. But since Max came back with that subpar line, they did have a little winning streak going on that brought them back in the contention here. Now they got to regroup again against Cincinnati. We'll see if they're for real or if that soft schedule they had, they'll just blow up like the Bungles always do. So that'll be the next mission that we have to follow there.
And for real, should be an easy game for the defense against Cincinnati. Dick LeBeau has always had great success against most teams, but especially rookie quarterbacks. And inexperienced quarterbacks, even if you go back to 2001 when Tom Brady played in the playoff game, and Dick LeBeau was all over him. Pittsburgh Steelers would have went to the Super Bowl if it's not for Brady getting hurt and Drew Bledsoe coming in and sparking the team. So I look for the Pittsburgh Steelers defensively to really get on track this week, but offensively they still got to be able to put up some numbers, you know, against Cincinnati's defense, and they got a pretty good defense.
Yes, they do. Actually, they've been playing very well. It's one of the things with Cincinnati is you assume that eventually they're going to implode, but it hasn't happened yet. Of course, they haven't played the tougher games on their schedule, 2 against the Steelers, 2 against Baltimore, but they played very good so far. And again, it's a team that you always look at and think, oh, nah, there's no way they're not going to win this. They're going to fall apart. But who knows? Maybe they're the real thing. I'll tell you another thing that, looking back, although when the Steelers beat the Patriots, you assumed that was a good win and that things were turning around. But if you've been watching the Patriots, that might not be true because they have not been playing all that well this year. There's some decent teams. I'll tell you, I don't know. I mean, I listened to your five best quarterbacks in the league last week. I'll tell you, you left off Phillip Rivers. And even though he's not on a good team and not playing in a good offense, he put a lot of stuff together this weekend, and I think he's a pretty good quarterback too. With New England falling apart, it's hard to tell who's going to do this, who's going to do what. But the Steelers still have a long way to go. If they lose even one game out of the two to Cincinnati, they're in a lot of trouble. They're already, even though in the standings it looks like they're one game behind the Ravens, they're two games behind because the Ravens own the tiebreaker, and that's never going to change now, no matter what else the Steelers do for the rest of the head-to-head's the first tiebreaker, and that's it.
And if the Steelers lose to Cincinnati Sunday, they'll be 2 games behind Cincinnati this late in the season. And I tell you what, there's a possibility you can get 3 wild cards out of this division, but it's an uphill battle for the Steelers for sure. They got to win. It's a must-win situation Sunday.
So, on that, then, who besides the Steelers, who do you like?
Oh, I like Green Bay. I liked them last year. I like Green Bay. You mean in the AFC then? Right now I'm not sure. I still like the Steelers. I think they can get in there. But if I had a choice, I think Baltimore could do it. This might actually be their year. They might have kicked the door in like Houston was supposed to back in the day. So this could be it. If Flacco stays cool, I think they could do it.
And I got to agree with Magic Mike. I was in the war room with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2004 when Coach Bill Cowher tried everything possible to get Phillip Rivers, even though my number 1 quarterback in that entire draft was Big Ben. But they just didn't have enough firepower to move up in the draft to get Phillip Rivers. They ended up getting a better quarterback in Big Ben. But I think talent-wise, San Diego Chargers got all the weapons. Vincent Jackson, great wide receiver, 6'6". Phillip Rivers, outstanding quarterback. They got some good running backs. And if they put it all together, but I think their head coach, North Turner, couldn't lead silent prayer. You heard Rex Ryan say that if he would have got the head coaching job at San Diego, he'd have a couple Super Bowl rings. That's how loaded they are. But if you look at the Jets are now starting to play great football, smash mouth football. They're going to bloody your nose with Rex Ryan. I got a lot of respect for his ability to coach. They got 2 former Bill Cowher wide receivers in Plexico Burress and Santonio Holmes. Those guys want the football in every situation. So you look for the Jets to really come on. And you look for the Baltimore Ravens as well. Ray Lewis, I don't know how he's doing it, but in his 17th year, he really hasn't lost a lot of ability. He's still a guy that, excites the football team, motivates the football team, makes them play to a higher level, and I think he's the greatest middle linebacker that ever played the game.
Well, I think there were probably about 2, maybe 3 years in a row that Ray Lewis was the greatest middle linebacker at the time. I don't think he's even close to the greatest ever played the game, but, that's where we differ on that. If you're a Steelers fan, here's the teams you have to worry about. The Buffalo Bills, you have to worry about the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to worry about the New York Jets. And maybe not so much the Patriots unless they win their division. But those 3 teams, the Bills, the Bengals, and the Jets, are the teams you have to worry about if you're trying to get into a wild card spot. All right. Personally, I know that this is not a popular opinion. I think Houston's going to win the conference. I think Houston's going to go to the Super Bowl. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think that is the team that's going to go to the Super Bowl. They're not going to do too well because there are 3-4 teams in the NFC that'll crush anything that the AFC sends them, including. This year the AFC sending a sacrificial victim because the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints, San Francisco 49ers, any one of them will eat up anything that the AFC has to offer.
Well, here's a little inside tip. Heath Miller may be the best tight end in all of football, but Heath Miller went to Virginia as a quarterback and ended up getting beat out by Matt Schaub. the quarterback for Houston, and so he moved to tight end, and the rest is history. But you look at how you win football games with a strong defense in a running game. Houston got 2 excellent running backs, and it could be a possibility, but no team in Houston has been successful since 1993, so I look for Houston to maybe wet the bed a little bit when they get into the playoffs. And I take it that after this weekend, you don't believe that the Kansas City Chiefs is one of those elite teams.
Well, I don't know about Kansas City Chiefs being one of those elite teams. They still could very well win their division, though, because even though I like Phillip Rivers a lot, there are no elite teams in the West.
Tebow is out there.
Right,
yes,
he got to
is.
win.
Yes, he is. He played a very good game. And I got a text message telling me that Tebow was one of the 3 elite quarterbacks coming up. And who are the other 2?
Who's this mysterious
Cam
texter?
Newton and Terrell Pryor.
One of them might never start, but Cam Newton is very good. Terrell Pryor, well, he might be in the wrong place. He's probably going to have to leave Oakland if he wants to start now because they picked up another quarterback there.
Well, he's throwing 3 interceptions a game, Carson Palmer, so it won't be much longer.
Well, at least he's back home out west, so that's the move. Maybe if Terrell hangs around a little bit, he can prove his, mettle there and get out there and start passing and running around. That would be nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we kind of covered the pros. Now, I heard last week that Alabama was gonna beat LSU. I didn't believe that, but I thought that was a really good game. It wasn't a high-scoring game. I thought it was a great football game to watch. A lot of good defensive plays, a lot of action in it for a 9-6 game. If you're a City League fan, you got to love Alabama because neither one of them can kick field goals. That was just sad. Locally, the City League, we know they don't kick field goals because they don't really try. They're always going for 2 points. Alabama, they couldn't kick a field goal for anything. What did they go through? 4 kickers? 3 kickers?
Something like that.
They all missed. Well, no, they got 2, obviously, but, man, they all missed from different parts of the field. And that's a shame because they played a very good game, and it's a shame to have to lose like that. And it's a shame to have to put that on that kid for the rest of his life that he blew that game. Now, there's a lot of people talking already about Alabama still should play for the national championship. In fact, there are a lot of people who think Alabama and Oklahoma should play for the national championship. And if you would look at like CBSSports.com or ESPN.com, they're already writing game previews. Before the season even started, they were writing game previews, Alabama and Oklahoma. Well, neither one of them should make it. I don't believe that LSU is going to lose a game this year. Oklahoma State may. I don't believe Boise State's going to lose a game for the rest of the year. And I don't think the University of Houston's going to lose a game for the rest of the year. Even though nobody's talking about them at all, they're also undefeated.
And their quarterback just broke the NC all-time career passing mark with 17,000 yards. But I have an issue with people not giving Boise an opportunity. You can only play what's on your schedule. They beat Blue Georgia out in the first game of the season. I like to see Boise get an opportunity. They've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, I was going to say that I agree with you 100% on LSU. I don't think they'll lose another game. I liked them going into it, and I think they should definitely be there. You can't put Alabama back in there. They did lose head-to-head, but there's other teams. Even Boise, like you say, would be a nice team to see what they could do against them.
Well, this has been going on for years. Utah had an undefeated team, didn't get to play for the championship. Texas Christian, undefeated team, didn't get to play for the championship. Boise, undefeated team, didn't get to play for the championship. And Boise State has been not only like a good team, they're an exciting team to watch. They're a fun team to watch. If you put them in that game, then you're going to get good ratings because they're a really good team to watch play. I understand it's a big money thing. And it's never going to change. The only time that will ever change is if Notre Dame is undefeated and don't get to play for the national championship, because that's like an affront to God, and you can't let that happen. If Notre Dame would ever be undefeated and not play for the national championship, there will be a playoff system the following year.
I agree with that.
Guarantee
100%.
that.
Well, why don't we just get rid of the BCS? Because I think that's causing a lot of these issues and problems here, like you guys are alluding to. They control all of this because of the money. And you keep some of these teams out again, there got to be a better system there.
You asked the question and then you answered it. Well, first, the reason we don't get rid of the BCS is because we're not in that position, or they'd be gone.
Right.
But the reason the people that are in that position don't get rid of the BCS is because they play for the money, and that's where the money is.
Right. It was more rhetorical, Mike.
I understand, but that's you brought it up, and that's absolutely right. It's a problem, and that's a problem that's never going to change until again, something like that happens, but the BCS is going to be in charge for a long time, I believe.
And how hard is it to get the top 8 teams and have a playoff system and make all this go away? Oh, I forgot, student athletes would miss too much school.
That's true.
Why don't we just go to this pay system, because they're a minor league system here? That's sort of what we need. You got all this money coming in there. They're not really student athletes. Look at how they're leaving college sooner and everything else. So why not pay them a little stipend or something, instead of going out giving a guy 8 cars and T-shirts and tattoos and everything else and getting him in trouble, teasing him on who's making money and who's not, and he wants a little piece of it. So they should change the system there. It's definitely gone a little too far. Look at, you're taking out coaches that were supposedly legendary, and all because of money here, and that's how they got in there too. So
I'll tell you what, the reason that you'll never see that is, first off, if the NCAA decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and start to pay these players, the first people to jump up would be the NFL, because then it would be competition. If these students are getting paid to play for this school, they'll stay in school, and they won't leave to go to the NFL. And that's the truth. It'll be the same thing as when the AFL and the NFL banged heads a little bit. The NFL will be trying to outbid the colleges to get these kids to come to school. They don't want that. That's not going to happen.
you could set the rules up a little bit to do that.
You could, but
Like a 4-year, maybe a 5-year education at most, and then that's when they have to come out.
Well, yeah, but the NFL doesn't want that. They like this 1-year education thing.
Well, let them play the games over in Turkey and Beirut and everywhere else all over the world then.
Right, but
they want to be greedy about the money. Sorry, you get me on a rant here.
That's the way it's going to. That's the way it's always going to be. They can't pay the college athletes. What I think they should do is that they should when you sign a contract for your scholarship, you should also take on that school as your agent for 4 years. Because then, you know, if the school was your agent for 4 years, people can't come in and tamper with them like they did with Terrell Pryor. They can't come in and tamper with them. Agents come in and trying to sign them stuff, because then it is tampering and it's illegal then. Right now, an agent could go and do whatever he wants because these kids aren't under that kind of contract. And then probably the best football teams would be Harvard and Yale because they have the best lawyers, the best agents. But you know,
but they'd also be playing too.
Right.
So
that's you know, but it would change things around a little bit. I had since we're talking about athletes in school, I mean, all these guys that play in the NFL supposedly are college educated guys, and you know, they go through 4 years of school usually, and they get their diploma, and they go. And then you do an interview with them. Hey, you know, what do you think about this game? Well, you know, like, you know, in this league, I just try to make plays. You know what? At least make these kids walk through the school to get to the football field. Maybe something will rub off on them a little bit. You know, it wouldn't be bad if you teach them to read or something. I mean, am I wrong?
I used to go down to University of Tennessee. You know, I'm an NFL scout, and I used to enjoy going down to University of Tennessee, and when Peyton Manning played there, I was down there a lot, and it was so funny because it was one of the universities where the football team actually, their dorms were inside the stadium, the football stadium.
No,
so
right.
they didn't even hide it. I mean, these kids did not have to go to class. I mean, you really had to make an effort to get from the stadium, which had, you know, their meals were brought in there, everything. They didn't have to leave accommodations, weight room, you know, training facilities. So they really had to make an effort to get to the classroom. You know, of course, Peyton Manning made that effort because he graduated in 2.5 years and got his master's in 4 years. So, you know, Indianapolis is sucking for Luck, who I'm not high on, Andrew Luck, but it's too bad Peyton Manning's career is probably over. What a great quarterback.
Yeah, speaking of Andrew Luck, what's up with Miami? What were they thinking? They were the front runners to get this kid, and they just blew themselves out of the water by crushing Kansas City. I know that people say that doesn't happen. I guarantee you the reason in the NHL that there is a lottery from the last to see who gets the first pick is because a certain team blew like every game possible during a particular season to draft a particular player. In fact, we had a goalie named Roberto Romano that they pulled up from the minor leagues. He won 2 shutouts in a row. They sent him back down. This what, you crazy? We gotta have this player. Eddie Johnson was a genius. He knew what he was getting.
That's right.
We'll have to have a show just on how there's certain things that don't make sense, whether there's corruption, whether people are bought off or swayed by certain things, and just common sense. Why would you want to win all those games and lose out on an opportunity to get a nice legendary player like you're alluding to, or like you're saying with Oliver Luck? Who's the quarterback that you would like or you think is better than Oliver Luck at this time?
Well, I think that, there's a whole lot of quarterbacks that
really?
are already in the National Football League that's better than Andrew Luck. I think Oliver Luck was just as good as him, and that was his dad. But, I mean, if you look at Andrew Luck, first of all, I started watching him 2 years ago when Toby Gerhardt, who was up for the Heisman, was the star on that team, and all Andrew Luck did was hand the football off. I don't think Andrew Luck, if you go back and watch film, and I watched every game he's ever played since he was 18 years old, I've yet to see this guy, even with the wind at his back, throw the ball more than 50 yards down the field. So he has a suspect arm. He has a left knee that is so bad he got a brace on the knee that no offensive lineman would even wear, so big and bulky, so he can't roll out. He's a play-action guy. I mean, he's very smart, very intelligent. He knows the system. But at some point in football, you have to be able to throw that football in tight spots in the National Football League, and he don't have that type of arm. And he looks more like David Klingler than he does Peyton Manning, in my opinion.
That's a pretty big difference.
That's a strong opinion there. Definitely.
But see all that stuff he knows? I told you we should let him on the show.
I want to have a whole segment with just this, breaking these players down. I appreciate that because I'm learning something. That's great.
But to change the subject a little bit, on a sad note, one of the all-time great fighters, heavyweight, the first champion to win heavyweight to win the Olympic gold medal in 1964 and to win the heavyweight championship. Joe Frazier passed away suddenly from liver cancer, and that prompted me to pick my top 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. I think the number 1 heavyweight of all time, I would say Muhammad Ali in his prime, which was from 1963 to 1967. You just couldn't hit the guy. He was just such a great athlete. He moved backwards. He could punch backwards. I think the second greatest of all time, in my opinion, I take a lot of heat when I say this, is Rocky Marciano. He was 49-0. He could hit. Nobody outworked him. I think number 3 of all time would be George Foreman. And I think it's a tie for number 4 between Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson. I don't know who would win that fight, so that's 4A and 4B. And number 5 is Joe Louis.
Well, I have to agree with Muhammad Ali. Don't think much of him as a person, but he was a great heavyweight fighter. You can laugh, but he was a draft dodger. He was a coward.
Hold it, that draft dodging conviction was overturned.
It doesn't matter if they overturned the conviction or not. He dodged the draft. All right?
I'm just trying to stir it up.
You can have the court declare this is a red shirt, but guess what? Yeah, it ain't happening. But anyway, Muhammad Ali definitely probably the greatest all time. My second greatest all time, Jim Johnson. He was a great fighter. He fought everybody. I like Rocky Marciano. I'd probably put him in 3rd or 4th. Regardless what anybody says, too small, too this, too that, fought old guy. Nobody beat him.
Right.
When you're undefeated, you're undefeated. I would put neither Mike Tyson nor Joe Frazier in my top 5, probably in my top 10. Mike Tyson, again, he beat the guys that they put in front of him for the most part. but they didn't put much in front of him for a long time. I mean, you can laugh, but that's true. You talk about Ali and Foreman and Frazier. When you talk about the fights in the 70s, that's the greatest time of all time for heavyweight fighters. There were guys that never did anything that were better than any of these guys. Could you see Mike Tyson standing toe-to-toe with Ernie Shavers, Ronnie Lau? They'd have killed him. George Foreman, not only George Foreman in his prime would have killed him, George Foreman came out of retirement because he knew that Mike Tyson was tailor-made for him. Tyson came in low with his head down, and Foreman was tall, and he threw that big uppercut. And he would lean back and cross his arms like that, and most people couldn't hit him because he was so much bigger. Tyson would have never got near his head. I mean, you can laugh and stuff like that, but that's exactly why Foreman came out of retirement. Unfortunately, that fight never happened, but if it did, it would have been a short one. And I mean, Joe Louis, again, another guy that didn't fight a lot of great fighters when he was in his prime. They called it like the bum of the month club, but he beat everybody that he fought. He was in some great fights with Billy Conn. He was in a great fight, and he built his reputation like that. And again, for a long, long time, nobody could beat him. So that has to say something. You have to be ranked among the greatest if you're the best of your time.
And I tell you what, Joe Frazier probably had the greatest left hook of all time. Beautiful, picture-perfect left hook.
Yes, he did. I mean, and he was the first guy to beat Ali, and he beat Ali when Ali was in his prime, when he was very good. Joe Frazier, unfortunately, shortly after that, ran into George Foreman. And Foreman beat him up really bad. He was a shot fighter after that, and he still fought two more great fights with Ali. And the last fight with Ali, even though Ali eventually won because they kept Frazier in his corner, it wouldn't have been half a more round before Ali went back to his corner because these two guys were killing each other in there. It was a great fight to watch, but it probably hurt both of these guys for the rest of their lives. Right. I mean, you look at Muhammad Ali, and I'm sure you'll see him making some kind of a statement about Joe Frazier. Over the next day or two, you probably won't be able to understand what he's saying because he's mentally he's been affected by a lot of the hits that he took, and he fought all the great fighters of his time. He didn't duck anybody, which I mean, again, I've told you what I think of him. He didn't duck anybody as far as that goes, but that's not the same as going to war and fighting for your country. And I'll tell you, he had a great asset in his manager. And his trainer, Angelo Dundee, probably won some of those fights for him. Yeah. You would see Ali get in trouble, go back to his corner, all of a sudden his glove is unwrapped, and we have to stop this round so he can go back and wrap it up.
A couple times
and I mean, Ali was, and you tell me Angelo Dundee, and if you don't think that Dundee had anything to do about it, turn the clock up 20 years and watch Sugar Ray Leonard and see when he gets in trouble, if his glove isn't unwrapped when he comes out of the corner. And that's just, that's the way it is. Angelo Dundee he took care of his guys. He's a great trainer, a great manager as far as boxing goes. But just, a great loss for that particular sport with Joe Frazier dying. Again, another guy that's been unhealthy for a long time. He was fighting liver cancer, and finally lost that fight.
I'm not the big boxing expert that you guys are, but wasn't there one of these guys that Jack Johnson, was that who it was way back then? Okay, because I remember Muhammad Ali talking about he tried to mimic or try to copy his style of boxing, and I thought that was interesting that he said he watched hours and hours of film, going back to the black and white film, to see this fighter fight back then, and he got in all kind of trouble and different things, had to leave the country, but when you see the movie that was about him, and I've read a book on him, it was pretty interesting that a guy like that, could fight when most people were against him, especially being a black fighter then and heavyweight champion of the world. That was just to overcome those odds at the time. It was so tough.
One of the things that you said when you started, and the reason I put Jack Johnson as my second number 2 fighter all time, when you said that Ali would watch hours and hours of film on him, that might only be one fight. Because they fought for 100, 200 rounds until somebody couldn't fight anymore. There was no 15-round limit.
Right. I understand that. I know. It's amazing what they did back then and the shape they were in and just how those guys fought. I mean, it's hard. I don't know how you decide on the 5 because it's mostly in the modern era that you're talking about. Excuse me, but I respect your opinions. I'm not an expert on it. I enjoyed a lot of those fights in the 70s, and Smoking Joe Frazier was just unbelievable. To see a guy, I'm only 6 foot tall, and to think he was 5'11" and a half, and he'd come in there fearless as could be, and he'd stay in tight on these guys, and he didn't care what shots he was taking. He'd take it, and he'd come in there. And I was talking with Smoking Jim a little earlier, how he would lift people off of the canvas with his punches, and just the power of the man. He was a true champion, and we'll all miss him, and it's a shame he had to go so quickly in the way that he did. That's just a sad thing.
And he definitely had nothing in common with Angelo Dundee as a trainer, because as a trainer, he thought his son was great, put him in with Mike Tyson. I think that lasted 25 seconds. But
well, don't most fathers think the most of their children, except that might be an exception, because who would want to put your son in there like a meat grinder there? I know I wouldn't want to do that. So.
Well, if you average it out, though, I would say that Marvis Frazier was probably paid more money per hour than anybody in history. Because he was in there for, like Jim said, what, 17, 18 seconds, and got paid $3-4 million for that.
That is a great point. See, his dad was looking out for him. Where else can you make money like that, fellas? Right?
Not only did he put Marvis in the ring with Tyson, put his daughter in the ring with Layla Ali.
Yeah,
she got beat up pretty bad too.
That's true.
Right.
But he was a great fighter, and apparently a decent guy. Did a lot of stuff around Philadelphia to help people out. Again, somebody that will be missed a lot. We kind of skipped over the Penguins today. Penguins just came back from a nice road trip. 1 point against San Jose, 2 against the LA Kings. 3 out of 4 on a West Coast trip's not too bad. They have an entire week off. Well, not an entire week, but they don't play again until Friday. It was like 5-6 days without playing. I don't know if it's going to help them, get their people back or not. I don't know how close Tyler Kennedy is. Apparently Crosby is not going to play on Friday. Don't know when he's going to play. But even without him, the Penguins they're leading the league in points. They've also played a lot more, not a lot, but they played more games than anybody else. But they're looking very good. They're looking. If the Penguins should happen to get Crosby back and everybody else back healthy, I don't think there's anybody that can compete with them. To be honest, I think that they're a lock to win the Stanley Cup this year.
I agree.
I agree with you. I'm a Penguins fan, and it would be nice to see Crosby get back on the ice. I just hope that he is healing up and he can take some of these hits in practice. Would be nice. And if we can keep Malkin healthy, get Kennedy back, Fleury's playing a hell of a game in the goal there. It's just awesome to see it. And the defense has been pretty good in every game. I mean, they let teams come back a little bit, but we got points where we needed it, and we've just done a great job there with the game.
What's your prediction, Magic Mike, in terms of Crosby coming back? Is there?
I don't know, Jim. I thought actually, to be honest with you, I thought he would have been back already. Didn't know, I wouldn't have made a prediction he was going to play the entire year, but I thought he would have come back to play already. If he's not back yet, and especially after this long layoff, I have to suspect there's something a little bit more wrong than what they're telling you. Tyler Kennedy just suffered a concussion. Looks like he'll be back before Crosby, and Crosby's is like a year out now. Wow. Who knows? So what the problems are, and they're saying they want him to be symptom free, and I can see that. I understand that. You see a lot of guys who came back too soon and didn't do well, and their careers ended badly. We talked about Merrill Hodge last week. He I don't know how intelligent a guy he was to begin with, but if you look at him on the NFL pregame shows and stuff, obviously he's had some damage from these concussions.
He admits as much.
Well, it's nice of them to give him a shot, but
Well, everybody's affected differently. Sorry, but
right.
Yeah, well, I watched him on the local news before he got his national break, and it was horrible. But I always liked Merrill Hodge. He's a down-to-earth guy. And in this past 2 games ago, they brought Bubby Brister back to kind of honor him and some of the players from the 1980s, the Steelers that never sniffed a Super Bowl.
Did they say why? Nice.
They wanted to honor the 1980 Pittsburgh Steelers. Harvey Clayton came back, so they couldn't show any highlights of these guys, but they did have them out on the field at halftime. But to stay in football, we know Western Pennsylvania on Friday nights is high school football, and we made a few predictions last week. I think a lock this week is an upset. Gateway High School will destroy undefeated Penn Trafford. It's going to be a bloodbath. But North Allegheny and Central Catholic are two great teams in Quad A. And I'm still looking for an upset in A. I think that Clairton will get beat by Stowe Rocks in the championship. I look for Jeanette to upset Aliquippa in Double A. In Triple A, I'm going out on a limb. I think Russell Shell is the greatest player I ever seen in WPIL history. I think it's time to rename the stadium Shell Dorset Stadium. He goes over 9,000 career yards this weekend. He needs 200 yards to go over 9,000. And if you think about it, if you go back to 1981, there's never been a running back in WPIL history to rush for over 4,000 career yards. To this day, there's only one City League player who's in the 4,000-yard club, and Russell Shell is getting ready to go 9,000 yards and break Billy Sims' national record of 39 consecutive 100-plus games. That's incredible.
That is incredible. You know, we had Russell in for interviews one show, and what a nice kid he is too. He seems very his head's on right, very determined to do well, and you know, he just, when you talk to him, you get the impression that he's going to do well. And I got to be honest, I did not expect him to go to Pitt. Really honest, I still don't expect him to go to Pitt, but I know that he's verbally committed to it. I mean, how often does that happen? Though?
Right.
This kid's got a lot of potential. He could go probably anywhere in the country. And was it Florida was chasing him?
Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alabama, you know, but.
Pitt or Alabama, let's weigh that out, Mike.
Seriously, I mean, think about that. Why? I mean, obviously, this is his hometown. Maybe he didn't want to leave home. Maybe his mom didn't want him to leave home. Who knows? But you know, there's something to that. But again, he's just a great kid. It was a lot of fun to have him on the show.
Yeah, sure was. And I think, and like I said last week, if I'm Ray Graham, I'm turning pro. I think Ray Graham can still go in the third round because Russell Shell's not coming to University of Pittsburgh to sign autographs. He's coming in to start, and he's better than Ray Graham right now.
Well, guys, let's kind of start to wind it down. Al, what do you see coming up this week as far as the football?
What else? Well, I'm excited about the Steelers in Cincinnati here. So.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I meant. What do you see happening?
Yeah. Well, I see us winning the game. We got Hines Ward coming back, so he said he'll be able to play. He's fine, so we'll need that receiver there. And I agree with you guys. The defense will have a pretty good game there because LeBeau, he is legendary against these rookie quarterbacks, which is nice to see all the games that he plays. He's playing chess, and you have these quarterbacks playing checkers because they don't know the game like that at this point in time of their careers. So I think it'll be a great game to watch.
Well, you know, again, we did mention that he's been known to disturb some rookie quarterbacks. But Jim, can Dick LeBeau and Mike Tomlin outcoach Marvin Lewis? I know Marvin's one of your favorite guys. What do you think?
You know, Marvin Lewis, and I've nicknamed him the Oreo cookie, black on the outside, white on the inside. And I go back to a story back in 1992. Marvin Lewis was coaching the Steelers linebackers, if you call it that. And I'm the only non-linebacker in the room. And Marvin Lewis is up on the blackboard stuttering like some of the players that you say went through college and can't talk. And he's trying to explain the 3-4 zone blitz defense. And Greg Lloyd at the time, who had 2 German Shepherds in the classroom with him, got up, called Marvin Lewis every name, blickety name in a book, told him to sit blankety blank down and maybe he'll learn something. And Lloyd got up there and you could hear a pin drop in the room other than me laughing. So Marvin Lewis is a wimp. He can't lead silent prayer. You know, this is a guy that in all of his years in football, this is only his third time having a winning record. So the Pittsburgh Steelers need to go in there. I don't know if Coach Tomlin can out-coach him, but I know Dick LeBeau is going to come up with something very, very special. And we're very handicapped because we got a very average. We got Troy Polamalu's caddy, Ryan Clark, over there hurting the defense every time when he comes up with a cheap shot. So, you know, we have to just play smart defensively, come out with a win, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers is a lock to win this week in Cincinnati.
That was very insightful. I got to be honest, I didn't know that Troy Polamalu golfed. So I didn't know that Clark was his caddy. I don't know. I think that the
That was good.
I think the Bengals are for real. Yeah, I don't know. I like the young quarterback. I think they're for real.
I do too.
I don't think that they're as good as the Steelers. I think that they're in for a wake-up call. But you know what? If they win, the Steelers are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So they better get out there. They better go out there and beat them. Because if they lose that one, their season is starting to spiral and pretty much can end up where I'd like to see it. But, you know, that's my prediction is that the Steelers will probably beat them. But, again, yeah, stranger things have happened.
And we missed something this week that you would enjoy, Magic Mike. One of the greatest quarterback, or in my opinion, the second greatest quarterback, maybe the third greatest quarterback of all time, Dan Marino, was in town. He's opened up a restaurant in Robinson, but he tried to open up a restaurant actually in Monroeville, but you know that Monroeville is called Anti-Marino.
That's right.
So that wasn't going to happen.
No, I'll tell you, Monroeville, Gateway High School's had two great football coaches. Terry Smith, one of the greatest of all time. Pete Ann Marino, the absolute greatest high school football coach of all time. It's unfortunate that they named the stadium, Auntie Marino, and none of Dan's family feels welcome there. But Pete Ann Marino, absolutely one of the greatest football coaches of all time. I would like to get him on the show here and let him talk a little bit about what's going on out there. I just, when we talked with him before previously, what a great guy to talk to. You had the pleasure of playing for him, being recruited out of Penn Hills from him.
Come on.
No, you can say, oh, come on. And I used to think it was a joke when I'd say that.
Yeah.
But when Coach Ann Marino came on the
Jim's
show,
such a nice guy. I can't believe
he said, oh, yeah,
this.
we used to do that recruiting all the time. We got Jim out of Penn Hills.
He might have just
Tell
misspoke.
my mind.
That's
Okay,
true. That's
Jim's
very
confirming
true.
it. Okay. All right, I'm a believer now. I won't say, oh, come on, anymore. That's it. You've convinced me, both of you. But how did you do when you played? I went to scouting report on Smoking Jim Frazier.
But that's a whole nother show. But
We'll hold that for next week.
We
then.
won a state championship.
Okay, well, I wanted to hear some good history from you there.
Did you win any when I went to Penn Hills?
No, nobody did.
Gap.
Nobody did.
Gap up there. So yeah, that's it. We had a pretty good show today. Come join us next week. We have some pretty good guests lined up for the next few weeks. Hoping to get Sid Bream on. It'd be an interesting interview. We'd love to talk to Sid Bream. Maybe Claudia Rosano will join us. We're still working on a few others. Talk this evening to Al McCauley. We'll probably get him on soon. Find out what's going on with Paul Spadafora. Al's the guy we should have, hopefully would have been able to have on tonight to talk about Joe Frazier. He probably knows an awful lot about him. And Jim, what's going on with Mr. Eddie Jeffries?
Mr. Eddie Jeffries, a legendary sports journalist, writer. Unfortunately, he had a stroke about 6 months ago, so he's going through rehabilitation right now. And he's still paralyzed on his left side of his body. But, we're just praying for him every day to get a full recovery.
No, I'll tell you, I don't give a lot of praise out freely, but Eddie Jeffries is one of the finest guys I've ever had the honor to talk to on a sports show. Had him on our show. We've been on his show. Just a great guy, and hopefully we'll either be able to get down to get an interview with him, or maybe have him to the studio sometime when he's able.
Yeah, and Eddie Jeffries, along with myself, when we had a sports talk show on Whammo, helped escort Mike out of the building after some comments.
What happened there?
After some comments, that's for another show, but we were able to get Mike out through the back door.
At Whammo, I'd love to hear that story. You know what? We need we need the phone system in here so people can call in. I can't wait to hear that story.
Well, we had some fun, didn't we, Magic?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Jim and I have been doing shows like this for a long time. We started with a lounge act called Champions Live, and they told everybody it was on TV, never really was. Then we went to Steel City Sports. We had a nice run on there, and now we're out here in Bethel Park. Hope you're enjoying it. We're looking forward to when we get the phone line set up so you guys can call in and talk to us. Hopefully soon we'll at least be able to receive emails. And I know we're not only just on the show live this week, or on every Tuesday, but we're also up on YouTube within a couple of days, and I believe they rerun on
Thursdays. And I also saw the show on Friday this past week also. And our email, if you want to email, it's Pittsburgh Sportsline @gmail.com. And just send us a line or something if you're interested, if you have a topic that you want to send. And we're in the process of getting this phone system. We have some research going on, so we're trying to do that. And it would be nice to hear from some people out there, although we can keep talking and we enjoy this, and we do hope that you enjoy it. And we'd like to hear some feedback if you have any.
Any high school predictions from you guys for this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know about this weekend, but again, like I said before, I think Central Catholic is the team to beat. I think they're going to win, probably not just the local WPAL championship, but the state championship.
Now, you know all the Steelers assistant coaches' sons play for North Allegheny, so does that change your mind at all?
Actually, yeah, it does. I think that Central Catholic will win in a walkover over that poorly coached bunch of players.
I defer. I'm not a big, fan of I like the high school football, but I don't know enough about it to give an expert opinion like you do, Jim. So, and I do like your theory on Gateway. So,
Gateway High School is the same as it is every year. It's a great team, a bunch of great players with just enough oomph to go most of the way, but never quite get there. Always, every year, most of the way.
And Gateway still's never gotten over the beating that Bethel Park put on them at Heinz Field.
And since we are at Bethel Park, we appreciate the compliment here, us local residents.
In which at the time, everybody thought it was an upset, but history showed that Bethel Park definitely had the better team that year.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up. Again, we'd like to see you back next week, every Tuesday, 7 to 8. Stop in, see us at Pittsburgh Sportsline. Thank you.